Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Rapid Dawn right here on Rapid Television. And right now it is time for the big conversation. My name is Victor Arke.
My name is Martha Alu. Thanks for joining us on the big conversation this morning.
And of course, today on the big conversation, we are taking a clear and balanced look at President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 3 years in office. Since taking office in May 2023, the Tinubu administration has introduced certain reforms, including the removal of fuel subsidy and changes in the foreign exchange system. According to the presidency, these decisions were aimed at stabilizing the economy and attracting investment. But they have also come with tough realities for many Nigerians, including rising living costs and inflation. The government has also pushed initiatives in education, digital economy, infrastructure, and social investment, including student loan schemes and effort to expand digital governance and revenue systems. But at the same time, issues such as insecurity, unemployment, and the cost of living remain major concerns for citizens across the country. So, this morning, we are not just looking at the policies on paper, but also their real impact on everyday Nigerians. And joining us is Abdulaziz, the Senior Special Assistant to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on print media. Welcome, Abdulaziz, and good morning to you.
Thank you, and good morning, Victor. Good to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Now, let's begin with a statement that you made, first of all, on in 2025, whilst you were preparing for the birthday celebration of the president. Now, whilst you were preparing for that Iftar celebration, you asked a question in your publication. You asked, who is the man Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and how has he affected you personally? Now, do tell us, the president, who is this man, the president right now, and how has he affected you, of course, Nigerians, within this past 3 years?
Thank you very much, Victor. And actually, that's quite a question that has a lot of parts. I would say, talking about President Tinubu, is somebody who, as a person, is very compassionate, is very generous, and large-hearted. I will explain briefly. When I say he's large-hearted, I mean this is somebody who is very accommodating, even to prodigal sons and daughters, people who he helped, who offend him, he has always accommodated them. And he's also large-hearted in the sense that he bears no grudges, and he tries to accept all as his own, especially as a leader. This is a very important quality. And I remember him saying, you know, at the beginning of this administration, when I think he hosted governors for the first time, that there is no political difference. He's now a leader, and he's going to deal with everybody as the same. And I think we have seen that. I have seen a president who has given Abia attention as much as Ekiti, who has gone to, taken time off to go to Enugu and commission projects, who has gone to the Northeast and on so many times for different purposes. And then when I mention compassion, I know that some people will say, but with all perhaps some of the policies that people think have brought hardship. Compassion, you know, there are two different things. Compassion as a person, or even as a leader. You could see even these policies that some people believed have brought hardship. I see, and I think it's part of the thing I wrote, that I see how he grimaces, how he feels unhappy, realizing that some of the decisions he have taken, important and necessary as they were, are affecting people in ways that were not intended. And as a person, there is that compassion. A lot of times he delays punishment, he tries to make corrections, give people chance and all that. And I learned a lot, you know, seeing him up close and, you know, seeing him display these qualities in day-to-day running of this country, in his relationship with people around him. And he's somebody who is very faithful to friends. We've seen how friends that have been with him for 30, 40, 50 years are still his friends, are still people that he creates time for.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, we are looking at the 3 years in office of the president right now. Now, how would you assess the president's 3 years in office thus far?
So, it's a mixed bag. And that's actually, you know, to tell the truth, because there is nothing that is, you can't have a government or even a system that you say is all rosy, that is all perfect. Perfection is only with God. But I say it's a mixed bag because first and foremost, accessing these 3 years would require us to reflect back to where we are coming from. That's important for every journey. When you are making assessment of progress, if you are making a journey maybe from Abuja, you are going to Makurdi. So you know where you are coming from. So you assess how far have I come, and then now say, okay, how am I going into the destination? Am I making the right progress? Am I going to arrive on time? Is the fuel going to take me there? So it's the same thing. The last 3 years have been quite eventful. And one important thing is that the president never shied away from taking action, which is very, very important for leadership. And also something that I had written about previously, that the president was also not afraid to take decisions even if they will make him unpopular, but he knows that these are important decisions, and that's the mark of true leadership. A leader is someone who takes tough decisions that need to be taken, irrespective of political consequences. It is different from governance, is different from politics. A politician will only think of his popularity, of how will this affect his rating, of how will this affect his next election, and all that. But a leader looks at the country, looks at its future, look at the reality, look at the moment, and takes the decision. And that's, I think, one important thing that President Tinubu has brought in as a president. He has shown that he's a president who has the interest of the country, and that is that takes primacy over everything. We have had a president in this country who reversed policies around fuel subsidy removal and other things, which would have been very helpful to Nigeria, which wouldn't have brought us to where we are today. But because he wanted to be popular, he took a decision that was taken by the outgoing administration then and reversed sweeping reforms that could have changed a lot of things. So leadership is not popularity contest, and it's also not, of course, a dictatorship. I know. I mean, like, you are leading for the people, and that's one of the cardinal things that the president always says, that we can't spend the people. We have to spend for the people. Okay. And that's like, I mean, in a nutshell, without going to, if you want, I can go to specific details. But in a nutshell, this is why I say it's a mixed bag of so many things. But essentially, you have a leader who is in charge, and that's one important thing. President Tinubu is fully in charge, and no surrogate powers, and no decisions that are taken on his behalf by some other people. He's essentially in charge of the administration. Okay. Be very alert and very, very knowledgeable. And that's one thing as a person. A lot of people will think, this man, if you come close to him, or even if you observe him closely from a distance, from media, you will see this is somebody who speaks on very topical, important issues, technical issues offhand, because he's a well-prepared person. He is very knowledgeable.
All right. I think, thank you so much for, some of the analysis that you have made. And when you started off this conversation, you spoke about how the president is compassionate. You spoke about his personal traits, which I do believe is different from his leadership qualities. So when a person is compassionate as an individual, how that reflects on his people is quite different. And you'd see that as a president in the policies that he implements as a leader. And one of the policies I would like to talk about is the fuel subsidy, like you have pointed out. In 2023, May 29th, when the president was being inaugurated as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, before then, his manifesto speech read that he was going to take out the fuel subsidy, not take it out now. He's going to phase out the removal of subsidy, which means that there would be, how do we call it, palliative measures that can cushion that effect. So when a thing phases out, it doesn't just take, it's not just taking out like that. It just goes little by little until it's no longer existent there. Now, the president on the 29th of May came, betrayed that manifesto that he had made about phasing out the subsidy, and took out the subsidy almost immediately, which of course is ripple effect is what we see now in the economy. Yes, I know that the World Bank has, you know, countless times encouraged the removal of subsidy and what have you, but let's take a look at how that was being done right now. Do you think, regardless of the fact that the president removed the subsidy, do you think he did it in the right way? And what do you see as that effect on the people right now?
So one, let's look at it from the basics. You can't spend what you don't have. And that was actually exactly the situation when the president came on May 29. If you go back as a journalist, just do a little reflection or a Google search, you'll find out that the Buhari administration wanted to cut the fuel subsidy at the end of 2022. Then later they shifted it to March 2023.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I think they push it to the time when they were leaving, and that is to June, which was the moment that this president came. And as of that time, as I said, we were spending the money we didn't have because the government was borrowing to fund that subsidy. Remember that we had already spent, as of the time, I think the budget for that year was almost ₦1 trillion on subsidy alone. And that's unsustainable, especially when the economic outlook itself of the country was very bad. We were spending literally everything we earned on debt servicing. That is, whatever Nigeria got as a country is almost the same amount that it uses. That is like you take from with the right hand and give with the left, because of the amount of debt that we were servicing. We were, you know, and then if you look at it also, even though the president announced the withdrawal, with also the Naira forex exchange stabilization, we had another crisis, and the government stepped in. Because even though it was announced at the beginning that subsidy was gone, as the president announced at the inauguration, but to be frank, it didn't really completely go until like a year ago, because it had to be supported at you know, one way or the other, because to manage the effects. But also on the issue of palliatives that you are talking about, I don't agree with what you are saying. There are things that the government, you know, pushed out to support. Like for example, the CNG, which is a major thing. The government invested massively in CNG infrastructure to provide alternative, cheaper energy, which right now, I know the penetration is still not at a very impressive level, but it's still helpful, especially in states that have the gas infrastructure, like southern Nigeria, Abuja, and all that. States that have their work is in progress. Just 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, the presidential CNG initiative went to Kano and opened 3 stations there, and then, you know, vehicles, including electric vehicles and CNG vehicles. So there are things have been done, because these are things that you can't do overnight. But also at the same time, you can't also say you will delay subsidy removal until you put everything in place.
But those were preconditions that he set for himself. He said,
in fact, I wanted to take you on the use of
He said before the subsidy would be removed, the Dangote refiner in his manifesto, he said that before. Sorry, Mr. Abdullahi, can you let me finish? He said before the subsidy will be removed, the Dangote refinery would have been functional, which means that we would no longer be importing crude oil into Nigeria. And then while that is at work, he will phase out the payment of subsidy. So these are preconditions that the president had set in his manifesto before he got into office.
I'm very familiar with the manifesto with all sense of humility and pride. I would say I was involved in working on the manifesto. I don't think this is in the manifesto completely. Of course, and when you mention, well, you can refer me to the page, but when you mention first removal of subsidy, first is a relative word. It does not say that it is over a week or over 3 weeks or over a year. So, and especially also when you meet a situation, sometimes projections are different from realities. Sometimes you may project something is like this until you reach it and you see that it is not what you are envisaging. Especially he was a candidate, he was not in the government, so he was not familiar with a lot of things. Like so many people who go into office, sometimes you get a job thinking that, oh, this will be a very nice job, and then you go in and you see that your expectations does not match with the reality on the ground. So even if the president said he will have a first removal of subsidy, and he comes to the bridge and he found out that there are no planks to manage for a while to cross the bridge, you have to jump. And you have to jump it.
Just a quick question before going on the break, Russell. We need to go on the break very quickly.
Okay.
When you said, before you get to that bridge, are you trying to say to us right now that the president was not fully prepared before he removed that first subsidy, even after the day when he made that announcement on his inaugural speech?
No, you can't say he's not prepared. It was even in his written speech.
It wasn't. I beg to differ. It wasn't, because the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, did make mention of the fact that that was not in the speech of the president. He excluded it from his speech because he didn't want other external bodies to influence his decision on the removal of fuel subsidy. You are conversant with the speech and the manifesto, and the Vice President did make mention of that.
I work on the speech. I know that it was. Not in the way that he said it, but it was. Believe me, and maybe after this program I can share with you.
So the Vice President was lying?
Was he?
I can't say the Vice President is lying.
But he said it.
I can't say that. Maybe he perceived it differently, or he had a different information, but I knew that I saw the text, and this was what was in the text.
All right. We have to go on a very quick break.
Yes, when we'll come back, we're going to continue with the conversation. So stay with us.
The way he said
all right, welcome back, and of course, thanks for staying with us. This is still Rapid On right here on Rapid Television. Of course, it is time for the big conversation, and we've been having this conversation both on and off air. But right now, earlier we were having Abdulaziz, this SSA to the president of print media. But right now, Ortega Ogra, SSA to the president on digital, new media, and strategy, also just joined us in the studio this morning. Ortega, good morning, and welcome to the conversation.
Good morning, thank you very much.
Yeah. Welcome. All right, let's move on to other matters as well here. And let's quickly just take a look at the president's his word during the 3rd anniversary statement from there. Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said, and I quote, "Nigeria is passing through a test, but I believe with all my heart that we shall emerge stronger, fairer, more united, and more prosperous than ever before." Now, he also maintained that difficult reforms were necessary to avoid a deeper national crisis, and insisted that early signs show stabilization in the economy, including improved investor confidence and macroeconomic recovery indicators. But here's my question. How do you reconcile the government's macroeconomic stabilization narrative with everyday economic hardship Nigerians are still experiencing, from the place of inflation to the high cost of things in the market? Let's start with Dr. now.
Thank you very much. I think, like my colleague had said earlier on, all those reforms were necessary, and they were necessary to build the macro. You cannot fix the micro without fixing the foundations. And the foundation upon which the Nigerian economy was built, the foundation upon which Nigeria thought we were a nation, was highly faulty. What the president had to do was come in, plug the leakages, stop the bleeding. So things like the FX arbitrage, where we had over, the difference between official and parallel rates were over 380 naira to the, in terms of difference. Today, that's shrunk to 11. Stability in the FX regime, where you don't need to come to Abuja as a business owner, you don't need to pay any bribes, you don't need to know anybody, you just go online, do your transactions, you get your rates. The spread between the official and parallel market rates today is 11. On the fiscal side, we've done that. On the macro side, we've done that. Food inflation is coming down. Up until the Middle Eastern war between the US and Iran. Food inflation had come down for 3 quarters across all staples. Proteins, carbohydrates, yam, rice, beans, eggs, fish, oil. It had come down consistently over 2 quarters, to single digits, 8%. Okay. And that's something that we monitor. That's something that you go to the markets, you see. 2 days ago, I was watching a TV show where they said, okay, prices of fruits had come down by over 70% in the last month alone. And this is in Abuja markets, from an independent survey that went to the markets, and it's on TV. So what we need to now see is, as a result of fixing the way our treasury works, fixing the way money is spent, fixing the way people interact with the finances of this country, states are now getting increased allocation in their FAC. We need to start holding our subnationals at the state level, at the local governments, who are responsible for ensuring that the dividends of what we're doing at the center gets down to the people. You see, a lot of local governments getting billions in allocation every month. I'm not even talking of the state government here. How are we demanding accountability from them? When the president made his famous "Let the Poor Breathe" speech, that is what he was talking about. That is what Mr. President was talking about. He's saying there's only so much the federal government can do. If you look at the new tax laws, the federal government has even reduced this, what it takes from the federation accounts in favor of more money to the subnationals, because we believe that, development starts at the grassroots. So we need to start asking that pertinent question of our subnationals at both the state level and the local government level. There are things constitutionally that are your responsibility. At the local government level, you talk of things like primary healthcare, you talk of things like, primary universal basic education, you talk of all those things, you talk of the trunk C roads. How is that translating into visible impacts for your people?
Okay. Now that you have spoken about visible impact, I know that you did make mention of the fact of some of the stabilities in the FX and what have you. And you remember the last time we had a conversation here, one thing that I did make mention of is the reflection of those policies in the life of the common man. I don't believe that that is now the responsibility of the local government or the state government, as I do understand that they have responsibilities and also they have questions to be answered. But you have spoken about all of these policies that the president has done. The World Bank did release a non-disclosure report that said in 2018, it said 4 in every 10 Nigerians are poor. And in 2026, 6 in every 10 Nigerians are poor, which means that there's about a 10 to 15% increase in the poverty rate here in Nigeria. How do you now say that those policies are very effective when in the lived experience of Nigerians, it is not reflective?
So, context is very, very key when you talk of, numbers, data, and the rest. The population of Nigeria in 2018 is not the same population.
How do you know that? We haven't conducted a census in over 2 decades.
But there are internationally recognized, frameworks to use to estimate population growth.
Without census?
You have, without a census. Okay. You have your birth and death records, at the most basic. You have enumerations that go on for other projects and programs at different levels of society. And these are used across the world, not just Nigeria, to estimate population rates, per year for each country. Yeah. So let's put that aside. What have we seen in the economy today? In terms of production, food production, just last quarter's GDP report alone has gone up by over 17%. Okay. And why do we see things like that? We understand that insecurity is still a major issue across different, areas of the country. But we're not sitting back on our arms and saying, because we know that it's the government's primary responsibility to ensure security and safety of its citizens. But what does the data say? You know, in the last 2 years, you have at least 18,000, you know, of these terrorists, bandits, kidnappers, either killed, arrested, or undergoing trial. You have over 125 active cases ongoing in our courts of people that have been charged with terrorism. You have 2.1 million out of 3.8 million internally displaced people, mostly farmers, returning back to their homes. And in doing so, what have they been able to do? They're able to bring out more agricultural outputs, which is getting its way into the market. This is aside the temporary food interventions that Mr. President had to do to ensure that those who were, you know, taking advantage of producers of food and, you know, rent seeking and, you know, making a whole lot of arbitrary middlemen were pushed out of the market. It happened with rice. When the fuel prices went up initially, when inflation went up initially, you had Nigerian citizens, people like you and I, go to the farmers, buy their paddies extremely cheap, and then hoard it till low season and start to sell it at 3 times, 4 times the price. That's why the price of rice went up to about 120,000. It wasn't an inflation play. It wasn't a fuel price increase play. It was just greed amongst a section of this country. And what did the president do immediately? We realized that was the thing. He immediately instituted the temporary import licenses to bring rice in and drop the price. That dropped the price down by about 30% in the immediate. With more people going back to their farms, with the dry season farming initiative, with the provision of inputs, fertilizers, you know, boreholes, mechanized, you know, farming equipment to the farmers, we were able to, over about a period of 8 months, bring the price down from 110 to 120,000 to about 55,000, which is today.
We'll get back to the food price again just in a moment. You did mention something about insecurity, and I'd like to take it to you, Abdulaziz, right now.
But I don't think Osega answered my question, though. But let's proceed.
Okay.
No, it's context.
Yeah, I don't think you answered my question because I wanted to know how this is translating
directly
in the lives, directly in the lives
the federal
of the
is to provide the enabling environment. For one, investments to come in, 2, production and productivity to be improved within the country, and then 3, to enable the states and local governments be able to distill down, you know, whatever programs and strategy that we have thought at the national level to the subnationals. The federal government is just one of 3 levels of government as constitutionally, you know, created. So we need to understand what each person has to do. But notwithstanding, I mean, in the last 3 years, how many states have you heard we cannot pay salaries? In fact, some state governments are putting their allocations into bank accounts and using the interest to pay salaries. The question we need to start asking is, why are you not plugging into things like the special agro-processing zones that the federal government is doing to ensure that across the entire agricultural value chain, you know, we can produce, we can add value to those products within the country, and then it goes to the market or we, you know, export it. That's additional funds for the country. That's additional money for you to employ people and the rest. We're looking at reducing the burden on disposable income for households, which is very, very key.
All right. Thank you so much, Otega. But let me come to you again, Abdulaziz, talking about the insecurity, because he mentioned it and we were headed there just in a moment. And since 2024 up until now, 2026, over 6,000 school children has been kidnapped. And the government did mention that they are intensifying efforts to fight against insecurity, banditry, terrorism in Nigeria. Yet, over 6,000 children has been kidnapped.
6,000? Where are the figures from?
Where
are the figures? Where are the figures from?
Well,
because I know the highest. No,
it's on the papers this morning.
That is not about being in the papers. It's not about being in the papers. Excuse me.
Say that.
Let me tell you, the highest number of children that were abducted are those of Kuriga in Kaduna State, and then lately that of Papiri. I mean, all of them are not
about the one in St. Mary's in Niger State?
That is the Papiri in Niger State.
Papiri.
So that is combined, not up to 500. You understand?
But we have this
and
in the
then,
reports,
and then
basically.
every other thing is pockets, maybe 50 here, 30 here, and then 6,000. No, I can't say.
Not in 2020.
I know. That's what I'm saying. This stuff doesn't happen in.
What advice?
No, please
So,
let me.
so what's saying basically now? What has the government really done, to ensure that children are saved, in their schools, and these kidnappings do not continue to happen?
Okay, so the security issue is like a big elephant in the room, and to understand it fully, I'm happy that you throw the question at me, because I have some level of insider knowledge, being someone who, as a journalist, had worked on this security program for at least consistently for at least 2 years, in-depth investigation and all that. And the problem is very big, it's manifold, it's not something that started today. And school abductions did not also start today. And one important difference, which I think we have to acknowledge as Nigerians, is the response. What has been the response of this government to school abductions comparative to what we were used to? When Chibok happened in 2014, the federal government then denied it, actually, and later blamed some other people, politicized it, and didn't take action. And up to today, tens or dozens of those girls could not be accounted for, are still missing. This is 12 years after.
Yeah.
And then subsequent ones. Look at when the kidnapping happened on the Kaduna-Abuja train in 2022, just like a year before this government came. And for a month, people were in the bush. For so many months, they had to cop out millions and millions of naira to free themselves individually. But one major difference, as I said, is that while the problem is not phased out, and this is not something that no one will claim, we can't say that, we know that the problem is still there, but then the responsiveness, the level of response, the level of seriousness that is being given to security is something that you just can't but acknowledge. And in the case of school abductions, almost all from the Kuriga, which I think was the first incident recorded under this government in 2023, and down to what has happened even in, there had been incidents in Yobe State, in Kwara, in Niger. All of these were able to ensure that these victims were quickly freed and reunited with their families. As I said, going back to where I started from, the security problem is something that has eaten deep. And it's not something that you can, with a wave of hand or a magic wand, to say you are stopping it, because of the level, how intense it has been going on for years, and then also other factors. Nigeria is a country of over 220 million people. And it's a country that is so vast, with so much forested areas that are largely ungoverned. And this is not a fault of Tinubu administration, it's not a fault of Buhari administration. It's not something that you can say is this exactly. And then the larger crisis in the Sahel, which a lot of people actually tend to ignore. The Sahel region, in fact, Nigeria is the most stable country in the Sahel region. We are surrounded by unstable countries that are daily. If you are,
they are not the standard, Mr.
No, I'm not saying they are standard, but it's a reality. It's reality. You can't live in isolation. If you are in a crisis situation, if you are in an infested environment, you can't isolate yourself. Look at as almighty as the US is, for example. It couldn't isolate itself from problems of drugs in Mexico because of that neighborhood, for example. Once you are more so with our very borders that are largely open, that are the same people, because that's one issue also. Because now if something happened in Jibia, for example, Jibia and Katsina, you won't even know that you have entered Niger, except perhaps maybe if you get a message from telecoms companies that are usually the markers that alert you that, oh, you are now in a different country. So there is that homogeneity of the people. There are so many. A former CG of immigration once said that there are over, I think, 600 illegal routes, border routes And these are things that are largely within communities, within farms, you know, farm states and all that.
Yeah.
And these are not things that you can wish away.
Right.
And then,
but are there strategies to covering them, basically?
You say what?
Are there strategies? What is the government doing to ensure that all of these illegal routes are being covered, they're being manned by security? Yeah.
So you see, as I said, we have land borders that is like over 5,000 kilometers, you understand, of land borders across northern Nigeria. It's not something that you don't have even the manpower, but of course technology is being brought in to help. I am aware that Ministry of Interior and Office of National Security Advisor have been working on sustainable. I know that the Buhari administration tried to do something which failed, but a new initiative is being brought in, because if you don't secure these borders, I can't give you the details because I also don't have much of the details. I know it's still at the conception level, but then it is a reality that if these borders are not really well manned, then you can't have a problem. But of course, as I said, this issue of instability in the Sahel, people move from Mali to Burkina Faso to Niger to Nigeria.
I mean,
you can't actually
Libya. The fall of the government in Libya caused for Nigeria.
Right.
You had small arms just flowing into this country as well as other countries within the Sahel, just because.
And also because also Nigeria is the market in court, because we are rich, because if you look at the map, we are like at the base, and therefore it's like everything from up there comes down, and also it's a big country, big in population, rich,
Mr.
and therefore
just so we don't.
But then, as Ortega, excuse me, as Ortega has read out some of these details, it's not like the government is not doing anything. I'm just saying that it is important for us to acknowledge these factors, these issues which are you know, impediments to whatever work is being done by security forces, but the figures and also even the reality, because there are changes. For example, I am from Kano.
Okay.
I drive all the time. Even like 2-3 days ago, I drove back to Abuja from Kano.
From Kano.
Yes, right. I fly Abuja-Kaduna Road at every time. Okay. You know, but then we had a moment just not long ago, just a few months before this administration, where you can't even go to Kaduna with your, you know, in peace, because you'll be thinking, even if you risk it, you'll be thinking. A lot of people had to resort to trains, had to abandon the travel, and maybe those who were flying because of the insecurity. And then also a lot of farming communities. As Ortega said, please let me make this point. A lot of farming communities have gone back to farms. I know that there was a time
in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, of course.
Okay,
let me tell
in
you.
Benue.
Let me tell you, a lot of people. I can tell you that there were moments as an editor in a newsroom. I know that there were times we were almost daily, not even almost daily, reporting sacking of villages, massacre, large scale, like 50 killed, 30 killed, and sometimes we were even short of positive stories to highlight on our front pages. Yeah. I know that for a fact. I worked from 2021 to the end of 2023. I mean, in 2022, that was beginning of 2023, as an editor in Daily Trust. But I know this was the fact. And I know that at around that time, yam became very expensive in Abuja, because I asked, why?
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Abdullahi. I'm sorry. We're running very short of time, so we cannot continue to be circled on a particular issue because we do not have time. Okay. Apologies for that. But you have re-echoed the problem. You have re-echoed the problem. You talked about our porous borders. You talked about how, you know, there are certain things that need to be done. Yes, you have talked about all of these things. But the question my co-host was asking is what the government is doing to close these porous borders. You are in the administration and you have a better understanding. So just hold on.
So that we don't
so we're not that question is definitely directed to you. So the question is, the state police is a conversation that has been on for a very long time, which I believe is one of the ways that has been spotlighted as the ways to solve the security problem, if not completely, but cushion the effects of these around Nigeria. And there's still a stall. The conversation has come up in 2024. It came up in March, the 6th of March 2026 yet again. And it looks like it dies down after a while. And then when there's a major attack, the conversation comes up again, and the Senate plans to speed that up. So speak to us about it.
the state police,
Yes.
for the first time in this country, a president has been the champion of the state police in the person of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And that's a fact. But the president does not act in isolation on things that are constitution bound.
Okay.
And that's why in his latest speech, he said that we need the National Assembly to quicken its work on passing legislation to establish the state police. Yes, we've come up with some ideas, temporary ideas that are taking care of certain things, like the mining marshals, the forest guards. But those are not substitutes for state police.
Yeah.
We've seen what community-based policing or localized policing can do in places like Lagos. How do you think, if we do that, across the country, don't you think that we might see even better security?
That's my question to you.
Yeah. So, again, government and governance is not about the elected alone. It's about every single Nigerian. Pick up your phone, call your representatives in the National Assembly, tell them, we need this to go. The president is ready. The new IG, upon resumption of duty, the first thing he did was set up a committee to see how, if and when this is approved, they can implement as quickly as possible. That shows you the seriousness on the part of the federal executive led by the president.
All right.
Secondly, and I want to add something to what Abdulaziz has said, at the end of the day, it's the primary responsibility of every government, again, to ensure the safety and security of its citizens. You have military and intelligence agencies that are better equipped now. You have a military that is, not ashamed to collaborate with international partners in the fight against terrorism. And we can see the results. Last week, we decimated, a major cell for ISIS and ISWAP. Killed their second in command, killed a lot of their media commanders, and just yesterday, there was a major ISWAP commander that came into this country, had meetings, all of them were killed. Just yesterday. Those are wins that we do not see being pushed enough. On the third part, we need to also go back into what we used to do before as a country.
Which is
watching after our communities.
Right,
if you see something, say something.
A collective responsibility, you say?
Yes.
All
if
right,
you see something, say something. You see wrong people around your community, even if you don't know who to talk to, you have your community leaders, you have your traditional leaders, you have your religious leaders. Escalate to them. They know how to get in touch with it. Because all these people go through somewhere to get to these places where they make these attacks because they're under pressure by the military in other parts of the country.
All right, thank you very much. And just to make a very quick correction, earlier I talked about the fact that over 6,000, that was the wrong data. It's over 600 individuals, basically. So I apologize for
and many of them have a vacuum because the government took it very, very seriously.
All right.
And let me say something on Oyo.
Just a few seconds
we need to realize that the most important thing is the safe return of those kids and the adults involved.
Of course.
So the government is being very careful. We're not going to make any rash decisions that will put them at risk simply because we need to get them home. It is very important, and the president has re-emphasized that every time. The safe return of every one of them is paramount for him.
All right, thank you so much once again. We've been having a conversation first with Abdulaziz, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Print Media, and Ortega Ogra, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Digital, New Media and Strategy. Thank you so much once again for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And of course, we've just reviewed the President's 3 years in office. Well, I guess they had quite a lot actually that they had to say regarding the President's 3 years in office. But of course, this is all we're going to be taking on this segment today.
All right, yes, just to take concluding thoughts from what Ortega had said. He spoke about if you see something, say something, which is a culture that used to be in our communities and I think should be brought back as well. But the government also has a responsibility, which we would be here to reiterate time and again, just so they understand how this affects the people directly. Thank you so much for joining us and Rapid on this morning. Of course, do remember that you can follow us on our social media pages across the platform at Rapid Television. And of course, you can get to rewatch all our episodes on YouTube at Official Rapid TV. And wherever you are in the world, you can watch us live using our website, www.arabianradiotv.com. My name is Victor
Okay.
My name is Martha Alu, and we will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.